Cavalry have done it. Wheels up to Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Wheels up to our nation's capital. Marco Carducci and company have punched their ticket to the 2025 CPL Final after Tobias Woreski 57th minute goal. Well, that was all they needed. It's Cavalry 1, Forge nil, and Cavalry will play Atletico Ottawa next weekend for the North Star Cup. Gareth Wheeler alongside Jordan Wilson and Jimmy Brennan. This is a little program we like to call Match Night. We have your full breakdown of what transpired at Hamilton Stadium between Forge and Cavalry. A little bit on the Vancouver Whitecaps a little bit later on as well. But let's start where we finished. Cavalry are moving on. It's official. Next Sunday, pre-match begins at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Atletico Ottawa taking on Cavalry. Atletico Ottawa have their chance at grabbing a hold of their first ever North Star Cup. For Cavalry, a chance to go back-to-back. And for the first time ever, Forge FC will not participate in a Canadian Premier League final, and that includes the Island Games as well. You watch the highlights, you just kind of feel like Cavalry were full marks for the victory here today. Forge, we'll get into some of their selection issues, but let's turn the spotlight, rightfully so, on Cavalry and their performance here today. Jimmy, it seemed like it was a performance of Cavalry back-to-back weeks. We were waiting for it all season long. It was a championship caliber performance and a professional win, wasn't it?
No, it really was. I thought it was a great performance from Cavalry. Look, first half, it was a little bit scrappy, both teams. Both teams very aggressive, and there's a lot of fouls in the first 45 minutes. But second half, it kind of opened up a little bit, and I think that's where it favored Cavalry, because Cavalry really started to use their pace out in the flanks and started making runs in behind. And I thought it was a great team performance overall from Cavalry. And as we heard, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. was delighted with his team's performance.
Cavalry did what Cavalry set out to do, and Tommy Wheeldon Jr.'s plan was to perfection. You probably think, obviously, these chances in the first half with Elva, they score. But look, they put pressure on Forge in the right moments. They made sure that they suffocated them in the midfield. They transitioned well. Wheels, but you know this, playoff football is about a magical moment. It's about making sure that you put your foot on the neck when you have the opportunity. And this, for me, was the opportunity for Cavalry. A little mistake, big mistake by Bobby Smyrniotis, and the man Tobias Woreski leaves them for dead.
It's a great finish. That's 5 goals in 4 playoff games for Tobias Woreski. 3 of those goals in 3 of those games have come against Forge, but you have to look at the mistake. You're right, there's moments of magic, but it's also about the decisions that are made as well. Malik Oluwabi-Bellewu hadn't started a game since June 22nd, gentlemen, and he's the player that ends up getting caught. There's something about being a very good player like Malik Oluwabi-Bellewu is. Match sharpness is a whole other thing. Then down the stretch, it was Cavalry with more chances than Forge. Just a .75 XG, expected goals in this game from Forge. Late chance here, I mean, it's kind of right at Carducci, isn't it? Carducci was good, but when you have a .75 expected goals in the game from Forge, not enough fight. And it just seemed like the team was resigned to defeat here. It was very weird. For long stretches, the team wasn't rallying around one another. They weren't feeding off the crowd. It was almost like they were expecting to lose. Am I reading too much into that, Jimmy? Because everything kind of seemed flat. They took off their only number 9 in the 60th minute through an hour. Now, Brian Wright, it wasn't his day. He had 6 touches, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Total through 60 minutes. That might be the right call, but we have one number 9 for Cavalry that lives for that big moment, and another one that simply was a no-show.
Yeah, I think, look, with Forge, I mean, it's been a long season for them. You can't take anything away from them because they won the league. They won the league. Obviously, they wanted to get to the final. I thought today, I think maybe, especially in that second half, Cavalry were just a little bit more on the front foot, and they broke the lines, and if the speed of play was a little bit quicker than what Forge's was. Now, don't get me wrong, Forge did have some very good chances as well that you would expect them to finish, but just on the day, and you could see the players towards the end were just frustrated because they didn't get the result that they felt that they deserved.
Yeah, I don't know if you have this footage. I mean, I made note of this. Our great director and broadcast team cut to the Forge bench. It was about 2 minutes before stoppage time, and there was about 8 or 9 minutes of stoppage time to play. Just the look, Kyle Becker's on the bench, like experienced players, and just the flat looks on their face. Take a look at it. Like, you're still in the game. it was like they were attending a funeral, their own funeral for that matter. No life, no encouragement to the players that are on the field.
Yeah.
You know, they bring on Borges and Babuli late. This was just an odd scene. I'm not used to seeing this from Forge. I'm not sure what has happened down the stretch of the season, but Forge teams of other years, that wouldn't have been the reaction. That wouldn't have been the body language. And we saw a bit of that last week as well.
Yeah, for sure. It looked like one team for me, for Cavalry, knows that they want to play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and knows that they're desperate to do that. And another team in Forge that said, okay, we've already qualified. And I know people are like, oh, okay, well, they gave their best effort. But the Forge that we're used to seeing, they have a little bit more bite. They have a little bit more swagger about them. And I was joking with you guys when we were watching the game. I was like, okay, well, Tristan Borges could come up with a magical moment, or Mo Babuli.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have that same kick or
It came
fight.
on so late in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, Borges in the 75th, Babuli in like the 86th minute.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are stars of the Canadian Premier League. I just question some of the decisions that were made and the overall output for Forge in this game. It didn't feel like a Forge performance generally when they shine in these big moments, Jim.
Do you know, I also think, too, guys, you know, when we looked at that bench there, and sometimes that's, as a player, when you come off and you kind of sit there, you're reflecting on your own performance. And you're kind of thinking, I could have done better. You know, I end up coming off in this match. I wanted to play 90 minutes. So there's a lot that's going through your mind as well when you come off thinking, man, have I let my team down? You know, did I do everything? Did I give 100%? And that's what ends up happening sometimes in these moments when players are sitting on the bench and not saying much.
Yeah, we said it pregame quickly. I was just talking about the matchups, right? We're like Masunda going against Aird and Poma going against Garrison Menkov. And I said Poma should bully him, right? 19-year-old. He's a competent player, Garrison Menkov. But, like, you look at this type of game and these type of matchups, Olabi Belawu and the Roshevsky chat, like, all these little things, I think Cavalry won those matchups, like, throughout the day. And that's just me watching this game intently. It didn't feel like Forge got into the rhythm that they need to be to win this type of match. So I'll credit to Cavalry for taking care of business.
Do you think if Chouanier and Borges start, the outcome's maybe a little bit different?
I think it's going to be the biggest talk.
Even when they both came on,
yeah,
you know, they did make a difference. You could see the areas that Borges was getting in. Now, if you have 90 minutes,
we'll get into it. Tactics is going to be a huge topic of conversation when it goes to this match and Forge.
It just feels like back-to-back years, Cavalry have found themselves in a good place at the right time. They finished 16 points back of Forge in the Canadian Premier League table. And they're the biggest difference maker of them all in Tobias Woreski. In post-match, he caught up with their very own Christian Jack.
With the man of the match, Tobias Woreski, how good does this feel again to score a goal here and take your team to a Canadian Premier League final again?
It feels amazing. Like it was a team effort today, and I think we got the job done. It was in some points not pretty, but like we fighted for each other and like got it done.
I want to ask you about your goal. At what point did you know to lift it the way that you did over the goalkeeper?
Like first moment, I didn't even really think like this is, I think, the easiest finishes when I don't think, you know, and have not to think too much. And like I knew, the link up with Gija, I know how he plays. You know, we can speak German. It's like it's easy to play with him, and like I know he wins balls in the air, like hold it good up for me, and I just play around him, and it gives me also more freedom on the pitch.
Your coach reminded me this week that you keep saying that you're unbeaten in the playoffs. That continues. Yeah. You must love this time of year.
Yeah, 100%. Like in these games, like you need to step up, and yeah, it's just a lot of pressure, but pressure makes diamonds.
We'll see you next week. You certainly stepped up tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
He's unplayable in the playoffs. Not just undefeated. I mean, that's the team element of him, but the job that he has continued to do. 5 goals and assists. Look at this against Forge. He scored 6 goals against them, including today's match winner in the CPL Final, match winner in the semi-final last year. Tobias Woreski has been a force. And I'm not sure over the course of the CPL playoff history, and yet we're only in year number 7, we've seen anyone like him, Jordan. Like, collectively, when Forge has won, yeah, Chouanier's had some moments, David Chouanier, but really it's been based on a collective. Yeah. But he is a true difference maker.
Absolutely.
That is what's different here.
I said pregame when we're doing our show, the best players have to have the best moments and be their best self for their side. This guy was today. He took the licks. He took the hits from Olabi Belawu, from Hajjabapur, from the Forge back line, but he kept on ticking. He kept on knowing that there's going to be a moment where he's going to just unlock this game. The reason why he's the best playoff player is because you look at moments from Charnier and Borges, they were team efforts and they had a glimmer of brilliance.
Yeah.
But he has taken over matches. Last year, in this 1-2 game, he took over as well, and he made sure that he got the better of Matusla and slid that past Kalela. But you also think about today, just this brilliance, Jimmy, the fact that he was able to get this touch. He makes this finish look easy. Look, Olabi Belewu, that's a huge mistake, but look at that for a finish. That is a guy in rare form, and he hasn't been all season, but it just looks like he's been scoring and firing from all cylinders with that finish.
Look, he's one of my favorite players in the league. I could watch him every single week. You get excited. He's that type of player where you actually get off your seat at some of the things that he does, and you've got to applaud him. But, you know, even with that finish there, just the awareness to know, right, that Belewu's going to take a touch, so I'm going to come on the opposite side now, and I'm going to nick this ball. It's going away from goal, and just to have the vision, just to chip it over top of the keeper, it was a great finish.
And the funny thing is, like Ali Musi, Sergio Camargo, probably Cavalry's two best players on the season. Camargo's out. Woreski drops back and plays a little bit of a deeper role. Looks like it suits him even better than playing up as a 9 or on the right. So, man, Cavalry looking very dangerous. A complete performance today. It was a headache for Bobby Smyrniotis to deal with, and the decisions that he made, I mean, he'll probably take a good long look at it as well. Let's hear from the Forge FC manager in conversation with Mackenzie Barwell.
Bobby, we always knew this matchup would be decided by a very fine margin. From your perspective, how did you see this one unfold?
Yeah, very fine margin. Obviously, it's frustrating coming out of the game, losing this one, because I think we've done enough to win. You know, you make there's one little chance in a game, and they took it, and I gave them that advantage to sit back a little bit and obviously hit on the counter. We couldn't find the goal today. You know, we did everything to push forward, and it just wasn't our day.
A record unbeaten streak, a CPL Shield. We know that this club sets an exceptionally high standard. When you look back at the 2025 season, what do you think you'll remember?
Yeah, to be honest, our best season ever. You know, you can't judge everything. You know, you obviously have that when there's a final game of the season, but this season has been remarkable. You know, you go back to 2 weeks and you go over from January 5th to now. It's been exceptional what this group has been able to do, what they continue to do through the season. Obviously, bringing another trophy to this club that we take a lot of pride in. And guess what? We can't have them all.
I saw you walk over to the corner flag, wave to the fans. You were there for a little longer than you normally are. What were some of the emotions you were feeling as you waved to them?
Yeah, obviously they're our engine. They're the ones we come out here, we play for obviously ourselves, the badge, and the city and the fans. That's what these players love to do. They love playing here, and obviously they've given us some great memories over this season. And yeah, the toughest thing today is that today my journey finishes with the 2025 Forge team. There's never one team the same as the next year. These guys have been absolutely fantastic. And we all know that 1, 2, 5 of them will move on. So next year's version will be different. And, you know, that's the thing that I'm going to miss. These guys were absolutely brilliant in what they've allowed us to do as a team and allowed me to get better as a coach.
Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you.
Guys?
Interesting comments from Smyrniotis. Best season ever? And I'm putting a question mark on that. Because yes, it was in terms of point total. It was historic, 21 unbeaten to start the season. But I felt like, Jimmy, this team aspired for something more. Other teams would bite your hand off, rip your hand off for a chance to win a Canadian Premier League Shield. But this team, the double, maybe even the treble. It just seemed like once they lost to Vancouver Whitecaps 4-0, they were kind of played off the field that day. Really, it was that game and the 4-1 loss at Cavalry were the two blips. But you felt like this team had something, maybe another gear that come playoff time, they'd be able to hit it as well. That's why I'm a little bit surprised by those comments. Yes, historic start to the season, but the finish, and that's oftentimes how we gauge a team, and the success or lack thereof on the season is how you finish, and it didn't finish well.
No, look, Bobby's right. I mean, they did have a good season. I mean, there was a lot of people that were saying Ottawa's going to win the league or Cavalry's going to win the league. And again, Forge every single year are always there, and they ended up winning the league. They'll be disappointed not to get to the final. They were hoping for the double. It didn't go their way, but I think, like Bobby said, overall, there was a lot of positives with this Forge side this season. But they'll be disappointed as well not getting to the final.
I always go back to what teams and coaches say in the beginning of a season, what they want for their team. And it wasn't, obviously you want to go to CONCACAF Champions Cup, but it was a Canadian Championship. I'm with you. that time when they lost and they were embarrassed, and then Bobby Smyrniotis was taking off star players to rest them for the next week because they knew that they were losing, that was kind of maybe the beginning of the end for me. There's still class side. Of course. Forge is still fantastic. They still won the Canadian Premier League Shield, and you're going to look at Bobby Smyrniotis and be like, for large portions of the season, this team was the best. But what they pride themselves on is always playing the last game of the season, winning trophies. The fact that you don't even get an opportunity to do that and win the double, that's going to hurt them. So I disagree. I don't think they're the best team in the Canadian. This is the best version of Forge. Absolutely not. What? Because if they were, they would be playing the last game of the season.
Regular season titles reward consistency. And over the season, they were the most consistent group. But then when push came to shove, they just lost back-to-back games at home. At home. That's why you can say it's a great season, but I'm not sure if that can cover up the disappointment. They were in a position to do that much more, and for the first time ever, it's mission not accomplished by Forge. It'll be Atletico Ottawa and Cavalry from TD Place next Sunday, a final we've never seen before, and a chance for Cavalry to go back-to-back and Atletico Ottawa to win their first North Star Cup. Kyle Becker, I mean, every season we say, is he coming back? Is this a farewell, or will Becker be back on the field next season? We'll go to Hamilton Stadium next, and we'll be joined by Christian Jack as match night rolls on here on One Soccer. There it is. It's official. TD Place next Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, pre-match, One Soccer and TSN, Atletico Ottawa. I mean, what a season that they've had. Sammy Salter, 20 goals through the regular season and playoffs for Atletico Ottawa. I mean, he's taking on the reigning champ in Tobias Woreski. I mean, what a matchup between number 9s on Atletico Ottawa and Cavalry that we'll see next weekend. Gareth Wheeler with you. And back at Hamilton Stadium, it is Christian Jack. Cavalry moving on after beating Forge 1-0. KJ, we've had this conversation or conversations like these so many times on big games where two really good teams meet one another. And oftentimes the games are decided either by moments or by decisions that were made. I think that both of them come into the equation tonight. Obviously, Tobias Woreski's magic moment, scoring the game winner, but decisions were made, particularly in Bobby Smyrniotis' starting 11, and substitutions that were made and when. Do you believe that one had a bigger factor or a bigger influence on the result tonight than the other?
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends on which sideline or which fan base you're coming from, no? I mean, if you go down the line of question that you alluded to, if you're a Forge fan, you're asking about, you know, the decision to play Maliko Olabibelu, who's been excellent for this team for a long time, but hadn't started a game since June, and ultimately makes a mistake where where in the goal, Alexander Ashnodi-Jonsson wouldn't have done that at that moment, right? So that's to answer your question, that's an issue for Forge that they will be thinking about. It is, of course, a game of moments and small margins, and from a Cavalry point of view, that's what they would say. Ultimately, they had the key performer on the field to score that crucial goal in that moment. But I think for me, a lot of it came down to mentality. You know, I was watching the Cavalry sidelines, and you know, I've been blessed to cover this team for a long time, and all these teams in this league for many years now since the start. There was just a noticeable calmness, a noticeable difference, and I think that comes from being champions. That, you know, I've seen the pressure get to them in the past. I thought about the 2022 semi-final here where they lost their heads, and the 23 final, which obviously could have gone their way but didn't in the final, and lots of different aspects to that, and maybe over-celebrating the goal. Lots of things that they've learned from, and they've had to go through the pain to get through this. But as I mentioned in Tommy Wheeldon's interview with me afterwards, I don't think Cavalry win this game today if they hadn't have won the final last year.
Yeah, well, and Tobias Woreski is now run hot at the right time. Jordan and Jimmy are with me as well. Let's stay on the theme of Cavalry. Oftentimes, as we've seen in previous season, it's about getting it right at the right time, and it seems like Cavalry have come into bang right form at the right time. This was a team that finished 16 points back of Forge in the table, KJ. And a lot of people thought that Cavalry would go on and potentially compete, at the very least compete, but potentially win the regular season. They weren't anywhere close. Do you think that it was kind of like a lack of concentration after winning the North Star Cup last year or something else? Because now all of a sudden, clean sheet here today, their stars are performing, and they look as good as ever.
Yeah, it's almost like a different season. And I think it's really important to differentiate from that for both these teams. I think that Cavalry were in cruise control a lot down the stretch. They knew they weren't going to get to the top two. I was with them last week. They kind of said that. They felt all along they could get to third. Has to be said, by the way, that they almost didn't if Halifax have done the job on the last day of the season. So they got fortunate there. But once they were able to solidify that third spot, I think that they knew it would work out and set up for them. And I just want to pick up on something you were saying about the Forge team. And I think it's interesting that Bobby Smyrniotis would say what he said in terms of saying that it's the best ever, because of ultimately they were league champions. And I think the standard of success throughout the season and the consistency and the true high level that they had would obviously justify what he said there. I would just add that in the future, it would be my wish that they would celebrate that league championship a little bit more and lift that shield. And then that way they were able to really truly succeed in terms of looking back at that wonderful year. I know why they didn't from a player's point of view, but from us, from a story point of view and from a content point of view and everything that we're building up to say that these guys are going to a Champions Cup and they've won something of substance. That is a league title based over 7 months of play. And I wonder if they get the chance again, whether they would say no to lifting that shield.
I completely agree on that. I think that you guys do too. And it also speaks to, Jordan, the fact that I think that they had much more, even loftier goals than just winning the regular season. They expected not only to win a North Star Cup here, they expected to host it. And what happened last week, it kind of like, I just don't feel like the team ever came back to life after losing last week to Ottawa.
I totally agree. And our job is not to make things up, it's to repeat and remind people of what was already said. Can Champ was a focus, winning the double was a focus. So I agree with KJ in terms of trying to lift something. But if we still have him, like, I just wanted to throw a question out to KJ.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, literally with that back four now, we talked about it last week. You're looking at Garrett Semenkov, Tom Field, Klump, and Aird. Is that the back four that Tommy Williams Jr. should be going with next week when you're playing this crazy attacking Atletico Ottawa side? Like, I'm just so curious how they played well tonight, Jimmy. But is that the step moving forward in 7 days?
That's a good question.
It's like,
should we call Tommy?
Field came off. It might have been a little bit. I don't know if it was a knock or Adam Jenkins on the call alluded to that it might be a hamstring. But he said before that Callum Montgomery is the more physical defender, and when he thinks he needs someone to play a little bit more to the back, he turns to a Tom Field. But I mean, this was only their second clean sheet in their last 12 games. So I think that partially answers the question itself. Like, all of a sudden, Tommy's landed on something here with Warshevsky and Elva playing up top together. And when you come up with a performance like this, Jimmy, I don't know how you feel. Like, I don't switch things up if I don't have to.
No, you don't. You played against York, and that was a wonderful performance, by the way. Right, beating them 4-1.
And Tom Field played well that day.
Tom Field played that well. And I like what Tommy's doing is because he's backing his players. And he's rewarding his players for the performances. So I would expect going into the finals, probably going to be near enough the exact same team.
It's interesting. A big game like that, a big presence, a very top defender, 1v1 defender in Montgomery to start on the bench. I get it. I totally agree with you. You reward the 11. But it's a big call for a manager to make.
KJ, what do you make of that? Like, if you're Atletico Ottawa sitting at home today, are you happy with this result? Would you have rather played Forge again? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're delighted because it's one thing to beat Forge once. You got to go again and beat them again. I think that would have been a monumental task. I'm not saying they couldn't have done it, but all the story coming into next week if Forge were there, that it would be the champions who know how to win against a team who don't still know how to win. And I know now we've got Cavalry as the champions coming in, and that story exists the same. But Forge, I think, would have been a bit more of a formidable opponent for them mentally, having just beaten them once already. Now they go against a team that they have a wonderful record against, not just this season, which, by the way, they've never lost to them. They've outscored them 10-3, and we've had some classic attacking affairs between these two teams. But now they play a team that they're comfortable with, and an opponent that I think that Atletico Ottawa will relish as being the big favourites, which I think they will be. On the other side, by the way, Cavalry will really enjoy that. I think they'll enjoy it by all of us by saying that they're the underdogs. I think they'll really enjoy us leading into that. They will be, but Ottawa will expect to beat Cavalry. They would have expected to beat Forge, but no, to answer your question, I think they'll be really happy. And when you talk about the Cavalry lineup, it's fascinating to see what happens. Callum Montgomery wasn't in the squad today. So it'd be a massive jump to take somebody who's not been picked in 2 playoff games and not even in the squad and then insert him into the starting 11. next week. The bigger question will be for me is I probably expect them to play the same way. But when you've got someone like Rodriguez in the pocket, what they did late in the game by removing one of their forwards and adding another midfielder, it'd be interesting to see how much work Tommy Wheeldon Jr. and his coaching staff do ahead of next week's game in the final.
KJ, we're going to have plenty of time to break it down on One Soccer Direct and across all of our social media channels over the course of the week. But I got to ask you before you go. You've been on the touchline for a lot of these big games in the Canadian Premier League, which also coincide with Forge playing in them. The body language back-to-back weeks here, and I just want to highlight this afternoon when things weren't going their way in the end, it just didn't seem right. It seemed flat. It seemed lightless. Some of the changes, Borges came on with 15 minutes to go, but Mo Babouli with 5 minutes to go in the 90. What was the interactions like on the touchline? Because it wasn't that spirited, together, we're all in it together vibe from Forge. It seemed like something else entirely, and it just seemed so unlike them. Is that a proper assessment watching from studio? Like, what was your vibe down there on pitch level?
Yeah, I think that's all very fair. I mean, we had cameras in the dressing room afterwards as we try and do some behind-the-scenes feature, and you know, they have every right to do this, but, you know, they moved our camera out as Bobby went to address the team at the end. You could hear his interview with Mackenzie Barwell there, where he obviously has had a great time with his 2025 squad. I agree with him when he says that this has been the best version of them. It doesn't mean it's been the greatest team ever, but I think at times they've shown the best version of themselves over the most consistency this year. But I also agree with what you said earlier, where I think something's happened here down the stretch. It could be the Whitecaps, it could be fatigue, where they couldn't convert enough chances. And when you look at tonight, again, they had that great chance with Wright to try and score that margins. You score that header, it's 1-0. You'd back them every time to win. I think it's 9 out of their last 11 games heading down the stretch. They got 1 goal or less in games. You're not going to win many games by doing that. So I think, again, they've got to go back and figure out when teams got deeper against them and challenged them, they couldn't score goals in bunches the way they did earlier this season. And that's why I think, as you alluded to, Babouli didn't play much down the stretch. Becker was beyond the ball a little bit too much for me instead of being on the ball today. So some questions, and that's what's so great about this game, right? They'll be reinventing themselves to go again come February.
Good stuff, KJ. You mentioned 1 goal or less. They've also scored 1 goal or less in their last 7 meetings against Cavalry, and they've only won 1 of them, including losing the biggest ones the last 3 times in the playoffs.